Hi and welcome back to Rolling the Robsons. This week we're talking about, is caravanning getting too expensive? Now obviously we all know we're in a bit of a financial crisis because of Brexit. Sorry, we went up to say Brexit, but it is because of Brexit, a lot of it. That's why we're getting a much worse deal. We've also got the war in Ukraine going on, and also obviously we're coming out of COVID and everybody suddenly wants everything. So therefore we're having to pay a lot more for, well, a lot more things. And we've been caravanning now, I think, since 2016, so not a mega amount of time. But one of the reasons that we first got in the caravan is that we've got 3 children, and it kind of made it a cheap way to get away abroad, but also gave us the ability to go away for like a few weeks at a time, or like if we wanted to go a weekend, it made that a lot more accessible. So that's why we've got the caravan. But more recently, we've been thinking, well, is caravanning anymore a cheap thing to do? I mean, like when my mum and dad used to go in the 90s, it was a pretty cheap thing to do. And we as a family are pretty lucky, and we know that we have pretty reasonable finances. But obviously, because of finances, we've obviously let the girls go dancing, do other things. We've bought the caravan, we've got a bigger car for the caravan, etc., etc. We're still going away to France this year, and it's starting to add up quite a bit. So one of the things that costs us a lot of money with the caravan is the price of the caravan and the car. So the caravan costs us £220 a month on a loan at the moment. We've only got about £3,000 left, so within about a year and a bit we would have paid it off if the crisis hadn't came too early. The car's got a bit more, but the car costs us £285 a month. So before we even move the caravan, we're talking 500 quid. Add on the fact we've got to pay storage, that was £380 this year, so that's about another £30 a month. So really, the car, the caravan and the storage, or then insurance as well, you're probably talking that we're spending about £550 a month on the caravan, the car and all that kind of stuff. And we need the car anyway, but we would probably have something a lot more fuel efficient if it wasn't for the fact that we had to tow the caravan. So we're probably spending £600, £700 a month if you're adding going to campsites and the fuel per month just to keep our hobby going. Options we've got are, one, we could reduce the amount of dancing that the girls do. Martha's in the caravan now, she'll probably start shouting in a second, and that's not something that we're going to do unless we really, really need to. So that's kind of a fixed cost coming out of our bank account. So then it kind of begs the question, well, what do we do to try and reduce our outgoings? And one of the options actually is to get rid of the caravan. Now again, that's not something we're going to do lightly if we do. I don't think we are going to do that, but it's trying to work out what to do. I mean, I asked this on Twitter, and to be fair, a lot of people made a sensible suggestion, why don't you get a cheaper caravan? And theoretically that's possible, but I am really picky about caravans having GRP outsides, not having wood inside. And when I look at them, even like a 2014 Turin, which is the kind of caravan I quite like, they're selling for like £17,000, £18,000. And if we sold this, we'd probably only get that much as well. So last time I went out with the caravan, went with our friends who were in Raleigh and Braithwaite, and by the time you factor in fuel, it was probably £60, £70 worth of fuel, plus then paying for the campsites, you're talking £100. It was £150 to maybe £200 that we spent. And this is kind of dictating quite a lot of what we're doing. One of the things that Maisie wanted to do this year was to go to Venice. She's been watching the Ingham family. I'm sure some of you might even watch them. They have a caravan, and now they've got like a campervan as well. And she wanted to go to Venice. So when we had the motorhome, that was the intention, to actually go to Venice. So Lucy was going to join us somewhere near Milan, and that was the kind of adventure we're going to go on. Now, I don't want to give too much away, but that is no longer happening. We just physically can't afford the fuel to get there. So we actually looked into going to France, which is where we are going to go. And when we looked into France, we had an original plan, and the original plan has had to be changed. Why? Because the amount of fuel it's going to cost is just getting ridiculous. Where we're now in near a place called Bishop Auckland, and I went into Bishop Auckland today to pick some up, bad hay fever and stuff, and went past the Tesco. This is Tesco. This isn't like a real high-end Shell or something charging a fortune. And it was £1.90 a litre of diesel. So we've actually, to try and mitigate that, we're trying to come to campsites that are a lot closer. This one here is about 30 minutes away, so probably about 25 miles, which does save us money. The other thing we're doing as a little tip is, if we can, we're trying not to go and pick up the caravan, bring the caravan back, and then so it's bringing it home, and that vice versa, because all those kind of extra journeys is making it more expensive. I mean, this morning when I had to go to the shops originally before the hay fever started going mad, we went to the shop and we walked, and it was about 2.5 mile round trip, which, yes, the girls whinge a little bit, But again, that saves us money, having to spend that money on the diesel that's coming out. I mean, even for my job, which has nothing to do with caravanning here, but it's now costing me £10 a day to drive to work, including the tunnel, for £10.50 a day. So all of that's really adding up, and we're looking at ways that we can cut our costs. And like I said, one possibility, but again, this isn't going to be a definite, is that we could sell the caravan. But then with kind of what do we do for our weekends away? I mean, I am going to be totally honest with you. We've actually looked at buying a Ford Custom and making it a little bit like a Nugget. Not quite as good as a Ford Nugget, to be fair. And that's from watching Cali Campers. So if you haven't watched Cali Campers, I'd recommend you go and see them. So even though they're called Cali Campers, they now own a Ford Nugget Plus, the high top, which is beautiful, but they're about £70,000. So we looked at that because actually what we thought we could do is actually ditch the car, ditch the caravan, which I think are worth in the region about £30,000, so quite a lot of money. And then we could replace it with a campervan that probably cost us a lot less. So we're a family of 5, and the space on there would have been quite tight to do that. I mean, it's physically possible, but even it's where do you put the 5th person to sleep unless you put 3 at the top or 3 down below to sleep. And obviously then it's limited in other ways as well. So that is an outside possibility. Another possibility was to go and buy a Citroen Relay, Fiat Ducato, or I think there's another one that's similar, and buy a shorter version, like a 6-meter version, and put a pop top in there as well. Because again, that would save us money. But it's all swings and roundabouts. The bigger the camper van you buy, then the harder it is to drive every day. Actually, my work as a teacher, fortunately where I am, I probably could park it around the back of the school. So it's just interested to know your ideas and pop them down below, because we always really appreciate and we read every single one of your comments, and we like to reply to them. We really love it when we get comments from people. We're just not sure what to do with the crisis. And I think even if we had not already booked certain things for France, because we've got vouchers from 2 years ago when it all went pitong, we've decided still to go to France this year, but it is costing a significant amount of money. If we hadn't already booked France, we might have culled that, and that would have saved us quite a bit. Even though we're going for 3 weeks, I think it's costing about 1,700 I've budgeted for, but that's everything. That's like the fuel. I mean, in fact, the fuel is the most expensive thing. I think fuel's going to be about £500, and that absolutely eclipses everything else. So, is caravan getting too expensive? And I'm starting to think that it is getting to that point where it is becoming too expensive, and the only option is maybe get a cheaper caravan. But then one of the biggest things that's costing us is just the price of diesel, and because we always have to have a big car to tow the big caravan, that's costing us quite a bit. So let us know what you think about that, and is there any things that you've done that really helped to try and reduce the amount of money you're spending out? Or are you just going closer, or are you cutting the amount of trips? What are you doing to try and save that money? Because we'd really appreciate some thoughts from our community, and we always really appreciate you and the community getting involved. And this week's video sponsor is nobody, because nobody sponsors our videos. But if you feel incredibly generous and kind, I appreciate money is mega tight, and it's a bit ironic that this video is about money's tight. There is a super sticker thing or something down below. If you'd like to contribute to the channel, we'd really appreciate that. But obviously, we do appreciate, like everybody else, that nobody has a lot of money at the moment.